Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us on the news briefing for this Wednesday. Our first topic is COVID-19, and we're very pleased to have Dr. Moreno with us today to take questions about COVID-19 and other information. Good morning or good afternoon, Dr. Moreno.
Good afternoon, Mia.
So for those who have questions for Dr. Moreno, go ahead and put them in chat. And Dr. Moreno, here is your first question. Compared to last month, the Monterey County COVID-19 case rate has increased 27.08%. The test positivity rate is up 37.9%, and hospitalizations number 18, the same as a month ago. Are we seeing an upward trend?
Well, thanks, Mia. So looking at data related to COVID-19 pandemic, we always look for trends, and so what we're seeing, I think, is still some fairly stable case rates and stable positivity rates. And in addition, the number of individuals that are hospitalized who test positive for COVID-19 also seems to be stable. So at this point, I would say the trend is stable, but I would just continue to encourage people to make sure that they're up to date and that they've gotten their recommended bivalent COVID-19 vaccine, so that regardless of what happens in the future, they are protected against getting COVID-19, particularly against getting seriously ill, and protected against hospitalization and death.
Mia, I believe you're on mute.
Thank you very much. Sorry about that, Dr. Moreno. Let me start that question again, unless you're a lip reader. Dr. Moreno, you've stated before that the best defense against the highly contagious Omicron subvariants is to be vaccinated and bivalent boosted. Are we seeing consequences of the fact that only 18.6% of those eligible in Monterey County have received an updated bivalent booster dose?
Thank you, Mia. I think what we're seeing is a result, actually, of majority of Monterey County residents having been vaccinated. We have a high rate of individuals that have received the series, and the data shows that the vaccine protects people against hospitalizations and deaths. So I'm glad that many people chose to get vaccinated here in Monterey County. And there's still more we can do. We can continue to encourage people to get the bivalent booster vaccine, which would further protect people against serious consequences of COVID-19. But we also need to remember there are other things that people can do to, besides get vaccinated, to reduce transmission of COVID-19, which includes people staying home when they're sick, so that they don't transmit the virus in the workplace or in public places or in schools. And if you're sick and you test positive for COVID-19, check into getting treated. There's a treatment that can improve your outcomes for if you get infected with COVID-19.
Thank you, Dr. Moreno. Any other questions for Dr. Moreno today? All right, here's your next question, Dr. Moreno. Now that the CDC has included COVID-19 shots on its schedule of routinely recommended vaccines, including a primary vaccine series and booster doses, do you expect it to have an effect on COVID-19 vaccine hesitancy?
I think recommendations from the CDC have been and continue to be that people get vaccinated against COVID-19. And I think that at this point, if anyone still has questions about COVID-19, whether they should get vaccinated or vaccinate their children, I think the best thing that they can do is to contact a healthcare provider to talk about their particular circumstances to see if the COVID-19 vaccine is appropriate for them, and then they can decide whether or not they want to get vaccinated or not.
Thank you, Dr. Moreno. Any other questions for Dr. Moreno today? Seeing none, thank you very much, Dr. Moreno, as always, for joining us and sharing your expertise on COVID-19. We'll see you next week.
All right. Thank you, ma'am.
So our next topic is going to be illegal dumping, which has been a tremendous topic for many years in Monterey County. And the county's illegal dumping and litter abatement task force is stepping up its battle against those who dump everything from mattresses and refrigerators to even boats along the roadways or along private property. Plans are for more surveillance, but also to get some data on why dumping is happening, even when there are so many low or no cost options for disposal. We're very pleased to have two people here to talk about this and what will be happening. We have Maria Ferdin, who's a specialist with our Environmental Health Bureau of the Health Department, and Mandy Brooks with the Salinas Valley Solid Waste Authority. Ladies, thank you very much for joining us. Illegal dumping is not new in Monterey County, and there have been lots of iterations of trying to get people to stop this. What is the latest that we're working on now? And Maria, can we start with you?
Okay, so we made a presentation, both Mandy and I made a presentation yesterday to the Board of Supervisors. And our recommendation was one, to invest in a pilot surveillance program where we would install mobile cameras at various hotspots in Monterey County. We believe that it'll do two very significant things. One, it'll complement the existing enforcement program that we have in environmental health. And two, we believe that cameras will deter potential illegal dumping in the future. And to complement the pilot program for the surveillance cameras, we believe that we need additional information about why illegal dumping is happening in Monterey County. And so we need data, and the only way to do that, to get it, is to invest in a study. I think Mandy can provide additional details about that.
And Mandy, before you talk about the study, Maria, I'm hoping you might put into context the type of problem that this is. I've been aware of the illegal dumping task force for at least 20 years, and it may go back even longer than that. But there's a lot of money spent cleaning up after people who just determined that they either don't want to go to the dump or they don't want to dispose of properly. This is a big impact on the taxpayers.
It certainly is a huge impact on the taxpayers. In the last 5 years, we as taxpayers, through Public Works, we spent $1.7 million just to send people out there, clean up the roadsides, and dispose of the material. And that's a lot of money, and that doesn't include the subsidized labor that we're getting through Smith and Enright. So I think on a fundamental level, me, Mandy, and all the other people in the Illegal Dumping Task Force, we're on our individual islands trying to solve a problem. And what we really need, an additional supplemental support, would be political support and also money. Right now, we're heavily invested in eradication. And what we know, looking at across agencies and jurisdictions in California, is that there's a new way of thinking about how to mitigate illegal dumping. You need education upstream to mitigate illegal dumping before it actually happens. You need eradication, that is, collect the material once you see it because it's attracted for other waste to follow. And you also need enforcement. Right now, we're heavily invested in eradication, and what we know is that you need all three of these things to work together. Me and my agency working on illegal dumping on my end, doing enforcement, it's not very effective. And I know this, and I've been working at it for many years. We've had extraordinary cases of illegal dumping, really spectacular cases. And even though we followed up with enforcement and with the DA and found a resolution, we're still seeing huge amounts of illegal dumping. And then on top of that, we have these really well thought out, progressive ideas about services like free mattress disposals and free tire disposals for amnesty days. Yet we're still seeing these two waste types disposed along the roadside. So we're missing something. We do a lot of these programs and make assumptions about both illegal dumpers and why they dump, and yet still there's a huge amount of illegal dumping that we see. And so with our efforts and our recommendation to the Board of Supervisors, we're hoping that all these components, education, eradication, enforcement, we're hoping to bring those together in a more functional way to mitigate for illegal dumping and hopefully see a reduction in illegal dumping.
And that's a great lead into Mandy, who talked very fervently about, the need for education, even after all these years, even after promotion about, vouchers for disposal and so many options available, it still is happening.
Yeah, so my part of the presentation was a request to the Board of Supervisors to help fund a community-based social marketing research, which Maria was mentioning, to find out why illegal dumping continues to happen. What are the barriers and benefits, and what are the motivations behind that? So then we could come up with a very targeted education outreach campaign that would resonate with the locals here in Monterey County, because, yes, we're part of the great state of California, but, Monterey County and the Central Coast, I feel, is unique, and we have our own unique challenges and own unique positive benefits, but we're just, we're our own community. And so doing some of that research, like Maria had said, to find out what really is happening with folks here. Are they not knowing about all the free programs that are already available? Doesn't seem to be one of the barriers, because illegal dumping continues to happen. So doing the research, doing that community-based social marketing will give us some of the actual real data and facts, and survey residents and survey stakeholders to kind of guide and lead a better education message that would hopefully resonate. And I'd give an example, which I did not give yesterday at the Board of Supervisors, but may have been remiss, that there was a very successful and continues to be very successful anti-littering campaign in the great state of Texas. Don't mess with Texas. So that's their tagline, which really doesn't say like, don't illegal dump, don't litter, but it does, because it resonates with Texans, because they have a lot of pride. And, they also read that message resonated with them, and they all took it to heart. And it still continues to be a very successful anti-littering campaign for the state of Texas. And again, when you hear the tagline, it doesn't say a lot, but it resonated with the people that it was meant to resonate with. And I think that's the piece that we're trying to get to with conducting the research and conducting the study, to hopefully get that message across in whatever way it is. We need to find out and ask people.
And so I've got some other questions for you, but before we take those, what was the resolution yesterday at the board? What is the plan for the surveillance cameras and then the data?
My understanding, and Maria, you can correct me if I'm wrong, is that the supervisors voted or approved that the cameras will come back at the next board meeting. The health department will put together a board report and request the funding for the cameras for this fiscal year. And then the funding for the community-based social marketing research, which is a larger price tag, would come back within next fiscal year's budget. And then there would be another discussion on funding that piece of it. But the cameras, it sounded like everyone was on board with making the purchase for the cameras, unless I'm wrong on that, Maria.
No, that's what I heard. I didn't hear a dissenting voice about approving the cameras, and environmental health is working on the board report for submittal right now.
So I've got a couple questions for you, and I wonder in trying to figure out why people do this, you know, or there could be many, many reasons. But do you think many people feel that dumping is a victimless crime? They may look at it as, I have a problem, I need to solve my problem in this way, but don't think it hurts anyone.
I can't say yes or no to either of those. The whole idea behind the community-based social marketing is that you know, our own personal inherent biases are taken out of the equation, because right now we don't know. I mean, that could be one of them. Cost could be one of them. Convenience factor could be one of the causes. But again, we don't really know. We only have our own assumptions. And so, you know, Mandy as a person, my assumption is, oh my God, I would never illegally dump. I know better. I know about all the free programs, but that's me and my ethic and what I'm aware of. That may not be true for, you know, other members in the community. It could be a variety of different things. It could be a cultural thing. Maybe, you know, illegal dumping is not a big deal in different areas of this world. And that's just what they did when they, you know, back home, or whatever the case may be. But we don't know any of that information. That's the whole idea behind conducting the research and doing community-based social marketing. Maria, did you have?
Yeah, Mandy just hit it. You know, I personally would be making a lot of assumptions about why someone does illegal dumping. Convenience, I'm assuming, is high up on that list. Mattresses, for example, there really is no reason. You have it in your truck. There really is no reason to dump it on the side of the road, because it is free to dispose appropriately. So, you know, they're not hurting anyone. It seems so. One can assume that someone illegal dumping is telling themselves, you know, it's not hurting anyone. But we know that illegal dumping has a cost associated with it, has a burden to the community in which illegal dumping happens. So there are all sorts of damages associated with illegal dumping. And right now, we're at a point where illegal dumping is putting a lot of strain on our public systems. And so that's something that we're trying to mitigate for. And hopefully over time, we'll see a reduction. In my heart, I'm hoping a significant reduction of illegal dumping.
There are some places that are more impacted by illegal dumping than others. Where are the hotspot areas in our community that people can? Well, first of all, we're going to tell them their cameras coming there, so don't pick those spots. But what are the parts of our community most impacted?
Well, I can tell you, just looking at our list of hotspots, they tend to be associated with rural spaces in the county, dark spaces, with convenient pull-out shoulders. And those are prime locations for illegal dumping. And I'm not going to tell you where the cameras will be. So so I'm looking forward to this, actually.
Yeah, and I just want to kind of mention too, like Maria hit the hot spots there, or the main issues is that they are usually very dark locations. They're not well lit. It could be like under an overpass, or, you know, someplace that's rural, that's hidden, you know, not a lot of traffic is going by, and it's a nice turnout. Like there's space to pull over and unload all your materials onto the side of the road. And I'm lost my train of thought. I'm not sure where I was going with that, but yeah, I'm glad we're not saying exactly where, because I think that doesn't help it doesn't help the situation.
Well, we also want, if they ever figure it out, we're going to see them too. So that's where we're putting the cameras, I'm sure. But so that was the bad news. The good news is that there are programs available. And if people don't know about them, if they're in a situation where I'm thinking of big things that people dump that can actually harm the environment, like refrigerators or appliances and things like that. what should they do if if someone is in a situation where they have to dispose of something that they think that landfill won't take, they think it might be expensive to dispose of? What should they do?
Well, if they're already, loaded up and have the material in their vehicle, coming to any of our agencies' locations, we have the Madison Lane Recycling Center and Household Hazardous Waste Facility, where we do accept electronic waste like TVs, mattresses, computers, tires. We accept all those materials at that facility, especially the e-waste and mattresses, for free. Same with at our landfill. Those have been ongoing programs. The Marina landfill on the Monterey Peninsula side also accepts those materials at no cost. There are other options that are available through your garbage and recycling hauler. They have annual cleanup events that are scheduled throughout the entire year that you can go to at least 1 or 2 cleanup events, load up all those materials and bring those all in for free as well. And then the haulers also provide a bulky waste collection service where you can call your garbage and recycling hauler and say, I have a mattress, I have a refrigerator, I have a washer and dryer, and you put them out on your curb, and call and make an appointment, and then they will come and collect that material right at your curb. So if you don't have a way of transporting this material, which obviously that's not the case if you're illegal dumping, but those are all free services, they're included in the cost of what you're already paying for. So you should really take advantage of those. But again, what the social science research shows us is that telling people about that, making them aware of those services, doesn't necessarily change people's behavior. So the other, I don't know, Maria, if you had anything else you wanted to add.
No, I just wanted to echo what Mandy just said. There are services out there for these materials. And if you're unsure, you should do a couple of things. One, contact your service provider and ask about the materials you want to dispose. And 2, contact the landfills. Chances are they can take those materials. And if you're really unsure, or if they've said no, contact the health department. Contact me, and we can figure it out.
Thank you both very much for walking us through this. It's exciting to see more options to try to deal with this, and we're getting to know what people are thinking as a way to get to the root of the problem, if that's possible.
Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity. We appreciate it.
And our next topic is housing. We're going from illegal dumping to housing. What is available to you if you feel you have been discriminated against in housing? Monterey County partners with Echo Housing for services, which include fair housing services. So besides investigating reports of complaints, staff also help people prevent these problems. We're very pleased to have Angie Watson-Hajjem and Christina Soto from Echo Housing to talk more about what is available to residents. Good afternoon, ladies.
Hello, thank you for having us.
So, and Angie, yes, I hope I said your name correctly.
You did, perfect. You got it right. Thank you. Yeah, so I am Angie, and I'm here with my coworker, Christina. And I'm going to let Christina talk the bulk of this because she's actually right in the community of Monterey doing this really important work. But Echo Housing, just to give a little background, we are a national, well, not national, but Bay Area-wide, Monterey County-wide fair housing agency. And we've been doing fair housing work for over almost 60 years now. And we've been doing fair housing work in Monterey County since 2017. And so with our program, we help people who are facing illegal discrimination. So they may be going to someone's apartment to try to get a place to live, and they're being barred from housing because of their race, national origin, because they have children, because of a disability. So they can call our office and we will do an investigation of their complaint to see if there is evidence to support the allegation of discrimination. So we do the investigation where we also do a lot of education. We talk to property owners and managers about fair housing laws and what's legal, what's illegal. We also do mediations too. That's a big part of the work that we do. We have a lot of issues that come up around disability, people who need reasonable accommodations. And so we often will have a landlord and tenant together and help them move through the challenges that they're having around the housing. So that's a big piece that we do as well. So I want Christina to come on because she is the tenant landlord fair housing counselor. So I would love for her to talk a little bit about some of the issues that we're facing in Monterey County, some of the kind of cases and issues that she's seeing residents dealing with. So Christina, I'm going to let you go on and take the helm.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Christina, and I'm the housing counselor for Monterey County for ECHO. And I just wanted to let you know that a lot of the different cases that we get in regards to fair housing, mostly the ones I'm getting is the one that are regards to income in Section 8 and anyone who has an emotional support or service animal. Those seems to be two of the biggest ones. And one example that I can give you is that I had this one lady who was stationed here in the military over in Monterey, the city of Monterey, and she was trying to find somewhere to live, and she had been living in a hotel, and she finally found a place, told the landlord that she had an emotional support, well, actually a service animal, registered service animal. And the landlord told her, well, I don't care, you still have to pay $1,000 deposit. So as you know, through fair housing, it is illegal to charge a deposit if somebody has a service or emotional support animal and does have the paperwork to prove it. So this lady spoke to me, I spoke to the landlord, and I explained to her what the fair housing law was around emotional support animals, service animals. The letters that she had was a letter that she did have to take a look at. And I'm happy to say that she gave her back her $1,000 deposit for that. I did tell her though that if there is any damages to the unit, that she can take it out of the regular deposit if it was caused by the dog, by the service animal, but she can't charge something up front. And then you also cannot make the deposit, any portion of that deposit, if they do give you a pet deposit, that's non-refundable. So that seems to be a big issue because a lot of landlords are afraid that there's going to be destruction on their property. The other big fair housing one we get is the Section 8 voucher portion. And a lot of landlords, I think, don't understand that if they're going to charge 2 times the rent or 3 times the rent to show for income, that it can only be the portion that the person is paying on their voucher, not the amount of the unit, which is what they could do under a regular type of unit. I know that we had a case, Angie and I worked on a case over in Salinas where this lady received her voucher in a unit that she currently had been living in, and the landlord was refusing to take it. So I went ahead and I spoke to the landlord and said, you can still charge the fair market value on that unit, but you're just getting the money, the rent money from a different source, from her and somebody else. And they were happy to take it so that it wouldn't become a fair housing situation going on. Those seem to be two of the biggest that we get in the community. And I think Jonathan was on here about a month ago, and he talked about our tenant landlord stuff, but we also deal with tenant landlord situations as well, if anybody needed assistance with that as well.
And
Anything
Christina,
else?
how would they contact ECHO for these services? Because I think there are people who experience some discrimination and may know what to ask about, but they also may not even know they've been discriminated against. They may not know what their options might be.
So they can do it one of 2 ways. They can either email me directly, and my email is Christina, CHRISTINA @echofairhousing.org, or they can just call me, and the number they can reach me at is 510-628-6122. And this is not just for tenants, it's also for landlords that may have questions. I have about 5 landlords that call me probably on a monthly basis to ask me questions about noticing or something that may have happened. And we also work with landlords as well.
And that's very interesting, because if you want to stop the discrimination in housing, educating the landlords is a really good idea.
Right.
Just so that they may be doing something they don't know is wrong. I mean, you always try to give people the benefit of the doubt, and the more they know, the better things may be.
Yes, and we've also, Angie and I did a presentation with the city of Seaside on fair housing with with their staff people. I just got a call from City of Pacific Grove. It's Fair Housing Month in April. So they want us to do a couple of fair housing presentations in April as well. So we are also open to doing that for staff as well as their tenants. We've done Salvation Army, City of Soledad. So anyone that's interested, we are more than happy to provide either a tenant, landlord, or a fair housing presentation.
Fantastic. And so for advice for people, what would you advise? Let's start with tenants. If somebody is going into the market looking for housing, what are a few things that are red flags when they discuss with the landlord where they want to rent something? What are things that they should be looking for? And maybe how do they resolve it before coming to you?
So one of the first things that I realized, and I don't know, Angie, if you agree, but people do not read their lease. They don't read it in its entirety. They just go and they sign it, and then something happens, and then I tell them, what does your lease say about repairs? Does it say that you have to submit it in writing? Does it say that you can do it verbally? Oh, it says in writing. Okay, so now you have to do it in writing. So, and also I let them know, please, please, please read your lease, all the exhibits, everything, because in there it's going to tell you. Another big one is utilities, where their landlord is billing them for utilities, or they don't know what utilities whoever has to pay for. They don't know who it is. And then I ask them to send me the lease, and we look at it together. And there it is in black and white. It says, you're responsible for that. You have to pay for it. So those are things that I tell them to. If it, red flags are always something like you have to pay 3 times the rent and first and last month. Well, you can't do that. If they're asking for an absorbent amount of money up front, if they want you to just pay in cash, if they're doing, leases verbally, I was like, you can't do a verbal lease, because lo and behold, when they get asked, I never said that. So if you're having verbal conversations and agreements, I tell them, reply back to them in writing in an email. Per our conversation on this day, this is what we talked about, and this is what we agreed. So then you have it somewhere memorialized if it ever goes to court. Also, I told them to read the sections about the deposit and the return of deposits, how they need to leave the unit, what regular wear and tear looks like. Those are the things. Oh, and when they move in, to ask for a walk through for move-in. I've had a couple of people that just wanted the place, didn't look at it, signed it, and now there's all these issues going on with the unit, but they took it as is. And then when they leave, I told them to take pictures of everything when they move in, when they move out, so that they have anything in case something happens during and after their tenancy.
And for landlords, what would be red flag for a landlord to try to nip any problem, potential problem in the bud?
I think for a landlord, sometimes I think some of the tenants, like today I had somebody who hadn't paid rent in 3 months and is blaming the landlord, but the landlord did give them proper notice. So what I always try to tell the landlord is, if they want you to come and fix something, give them the 24-hour notice. Give them information, talk to them. If they didn't rent to them, tell them why. Always be open with them. And they have to have a relationship with their tenant. They may not like each other, but at least they have some type of relationship where they're able to talk it through. Because I've had some landlords that I've called, and they're yelling at me because they don't understand why the tenant's not talking to them. And I'm like, I don't know. She just asked me to call you. And this was after. I'm like, why don't you talk to them? Why don't you talk to them? So those are some of the things. Also, some red flags too would probably be the noise stuff. Like if you have other tenants complaining about quiet enjoyment, try to address it with them as soon as possible and let them know. So when you're giving them 3 notices to cure quiet enjoyment, they're not calling us and saying, well, I don't know what they're talking about. I don't know what they're saying. I realized that 95% of the landlords are very good people. And sometimes they just have misunderstanding and miscommunications. So I guess it would be clarity in whatever they're talking about.
Really good advice. And so for tenants or landlords, echofairhousing.org, or is it echohousing.org? website so that they can find information, find you? And I'm sure you've got a lot of information there.
So our website is, oh, did you want to answer that, Angie?
Oh, well, our website is www.echofairhousing.org. So it's www.echofairhousing.org. And you can find out about all the different programs that we have. And then Christina, you want to give your phone number out again for folks?
Yes. So my number is 510-628-6122.
Thank you both very much for walking through this. The more people know, the better things are all the way around, especially in landlord-tenant relationships.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for being here, and thanks everyone for participating today. Our next news briefing is next week. We'll see you then.